Amity University has been ranked India's #1 not-for-profit private university for the past 7 years. Amity has also set a new standard of academic excellence in India by becoming Asia's only not-for-profit university to be awarded US Regional Accreditation as well as India's only university to be accredited by the UK's Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education. The university is part of the not-for-profit Amity Education Group, established more than 2 decades ago by the Chauhan family. Today, the group is home to over 175,000 brilliant students, pursuing over 400 programs in 60 diverse disciplines across 9 universities and 26 schools. Amity Group's vision of establishing a global knowledge network has led to establishing international campuses in London, Singapore, Dubai, New York, San Francisco, Amsterdam, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, Tashkent, Mauritius, Nairobi and South Africa. Amity's strong focus on research and innovation has led to the filing of more than 1,200 patents, which according to the Controller General of Patents in India is the highest number of patents filed by any individual Indian university. Amity is also engaged in conducting more than 300 high-end government-funded as well as international research projects, including those funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, United States Agency for International Development and the Leverhulme Trust UK. In the field of management, the university has developed more than 2,500 case studies in recent years that have been bought in 106 countries by over 2,300 leading institutions and organizations. The university has also pioneered the concept of industry-led institutions, where leading organizations such as the multinational conglomerate Tata, the UK's Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors and the Confederation of Indian Industry (CII) have set up institutions in partnership with Amity on campus. Attracting some of the most brilliant students, Amity has instituted India's largest private scholarship programs, benefiting over 25,000 students. These students are blazing a trail of success, having filed over 100 patents and published 1,500 Scopus-indexed research papers. It has also awarded over 2,000 PhD fellowships to brilliant researchers to carry out path-breaking research in thrust areas that will impact the development of the country. The award-winning Innovation Incubator on campus has nurtured more than 100 companies and attracted investments of over $40 million. The campus also has many high-end research centers, including ones set up with Nobel laureates.
A very warm good afternoon to our esteemed dignitaries, corporate leaders from various sectors, faculty researchers, and our fellow students. It is a profound privilege for me, Priyam Tyagi, to welcome this August gathering on behalf of Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, to the Leadership Forum of 7th GLRC 2022 on the theme Leading in the New Reality, Insights into Action.
A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way, so profoundly said by John Maxwell. Namaste, and a very pleasant afternoon to one and all. I, Dr. Pooja Sareen, on behalf of Amity Business School, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, extend a very hearty and a very warm welcome to our respected and very dynamic Dean FMS and Director ABS, Chairperson GLRC 2022, Dr. Sanjeev Bansal Sir, and our very highly illustrious and eminent speakers from industry and academia who have joined us from across the globe for this leadership forum. We extend a very hearty welcome to each one of you. We are also privileged to have with us Ms. Sharmila Sahai, Managing Director, Timex Group, Dr. Paul Brown, Professor of Organizational Neuroscience, Monarch Business School, Switzerland, Mr. Shivendra Mohan, CEO, Proficient Logistics Service, Mr. Manas Sinha, Founder, CEO, and MD, IntelliVectra Technology, and Ms. Shelly Kalra, Senior Vice President, Operational Risk, Daily Pay Inc., New York. We are so thankful for your gracious presence.
We have with us our Dean and Director, Dr. Sanjeev Bansal Sir. I feel honored to introduce him. He is an admired academician, and under his leadership, ABS has scaled heights and has been ranked in the top 10 B schools of India in 7 successive years. In his acclaimed career span of 33 years in teaching, research, and consultancy, he has been invited to be a part of several prestigious academic professional bodies, and his advisory capacity has steered them to success. He is an avid researcher and has more than 225 plus research papers in prestigious journals to his credit. He has authored 47 books which have been exceptionally well received. He has been awarded Lifetime Achievement Award by GBIT and SIBF. He also won Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan Lifetime Achievement National Award and Rashtraratan National Award by IRDP. He was also awarded as a Best Outstanding Academic Leader National Award 2020 from KIER and Excellence in Academics Award by ESN in 2021. We welcome you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Kritika. I really feel humbled, and I just pray to Almighty to make me worthy of all these kind words. And thank you so very much, all the esteemed panelists here today. So very good afternoon, one and all. On behalf of our Honorable Founder President, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, our Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan, Vice Chancellor, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Dr. Balvinder Shukla, all the faculty, staff, and vibrant students at Amity Business School, I extend a gracious and a heartfelt welcome to all the esteemed speakers from academia and corporate, and the participants joining from across the globe for the Leadership Forum on 7th Global Leadership Research Conference GLRC 2022 on the theme Leading in the New Reality, Insights into Actions. Under the great strategic and dynamic leadership of our founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, with his unparalleled vision, focused determination, and unremitting efforts, today, Amity is on the map of the world as a well-recognized group globally. Spread over 7 continents, with more than 20 countries, we are having our presence, and in 20 states of India, we are having our campuses. Amity Business School, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, the school which fortunately I am heading, is the first institution of higher education, flagship institution of the group, established in 1995. Today we have 25 preschools and schools and 11 universities in different states. This is 17th version of our leadership conference, reinvented as Global Leadership Research Conference GLRC in 2016. We all have been witnessing an unprecedented pandemic for 25 plus months now. The world economy is restoring, organizations are bouncing back, working environment are reviving, administration and individuals are coming out of the slumber. Indeed, even when the pandemic is behind us, organization will not have the option to get back to the same old thing, same old way. The fast speed increase of better approaches for working and innovation is extending the gap among winning and losing associations. Those incapable to adjust to the new reality will be abundant. A great leader is the one who carries the torch of wisdom and enlightens the society, thereby leading people to the path of progress and growth. Leaders are those people who set certain benchmarks and try to achieve those benchmarks by allowing people to judge them according to their actions and endeavors. Leadership is not an easy task, and I can assure you that it cannot be cultivated within a day. It is not for people with weak hearts. A true leader will always have a goal and vision, and he or she in his or her team will work every day, every moment, every second to accomplish their dream. We are all more than aware of how COVID-19 has turned the world on its head. Every single one of us has experienced an impact on our professional and personal lives in one way or another. As we start to edge closer to some kind of return in normalcy, it's crucial that business leaders don't lose sight of the skills they have developed and honed during the pandemic. The three key leadership skills that will be crucial for a post-pandemic world are agility, data-driven decision-making, and perhaps most importantly, empathy. Successful organization will depend on leaders who are as empathetic as they are capable. While the crisis is frightening and tragic, it also offers valuable lessons. What we learn today about ways of working will be invaluable for years to come. So it's up to the leaders to rise to the occasion. Their actions are deciding factors in which their organizations emerge from this crisis stronger than before. Today we have stalwarts from different domains. They will be sharing their experiences of such challenges and giving their valuable insight to the audience. I am greatly thankful to Ms. Sharmila Sahai, Managing Director, Timex Group, Dr. Paul Brown, Professor of Organizational Neuroscience, Monarch Business School, Switzerland, Mr. Shivendra Mohan, CEO, Proficient Logistics Services, Mr. Manas Sinha, CEO, IntelliVectra Technology, Ms. Shelly Kalra, VP, Operational Risk, Daily Paying, New York. I'm also personally thankful to Dr. Paul Brown, Professor of Organizational Neuroscience, Monarch Business School, Switzerland, for accepting the MIT Excellence Award and being there. On behalf of the session convener, Dr. Pooja Sreen and Ms. Kritika Dasgupta, and my personal behalf, a hearty welcome to all the esteemed once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for a comprehensive introduction of the forum. We look forward to an extremely engaging and engrossing discussion ahead. Following the Amity tradition, we would take this opportunity to welcome our esteemed dignitaries with Tulsi saplings. We now request our Dean FMS and Director ABS, Dr. Sanjeev Bansal sir, to welcome our distinguished speakers with a Tulsi sapling.
Welcome, Ms. Welcome, Ms. Sharma Sahai. Thank you so very much for being there. I just pray to Almighty that all of us should be assembled very soon in the auditorium. You can just see the F2 auditorium. We have a auditorium with a very big capacity, and you can see today some students sitting there as per the COVID protocol. And incidentally, today is the first day, Dr. Brown, where our students are joining in face-to-face mode. And number of them may be joining in face-to-face mode maybe after 18 months. I mean, after almost 3 semesters, they are joining. Right. They are second semester students, also 4th semester, all the brilliant students of MBA classes. Welcome to this conference, Ms. Sahai.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
We now request our respected Dean, sir, to welcome Dr. Paul Brown, Professor of Organizational Neuroscience, Monarch Business School.
Pleasure to have you here, sir. Thank you so very much. Welcome to this conference.
I am delighted and honored to be with you. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is all ours. May I now request our respected Dean, sir, to welcome Mr. Shivendra Mohan, CEO, Proficient Logistics Services.
Thank you, Shivendra ji. Thank you so very much for being there. Welcome to this conference. Thank you.
Pleasure, sir. Pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
I humbly request our Dean, sir, to welcome Mr. Manas Sinha, Founder, CEO, and MD, IntelliVectra Technology.
Manas ji, welcome to this forum. Thank you so very much for being there.
You are on mute. You are on mute.
Manas ji, you are on mute.
Yes, my apologies. Thank you so much, Dr. Bansal and the team out there. Thank you so much for giving me this honor and opportunity to share.
Dr. Pooja, Ms. Kritika, I hope all these saplings will be given to our guests whenever they are coming to the campus. So please make ensure, please ensure that they should be all coming to the campus soon.
Yes, sir. May I now request our respected Dean, sir, to welcome Ms. Shelley Kalra, Senior Vice President, Operational Risk, Daily Pay Inc., New York.
Welcome, Ms. Kalra. Thank you so very much for being there.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Moving forward, we feel privileged to have amongst us Ms. Sharmila Sahai, Managing Director, Timex Group. Ms. Sharmila Sahai is a strategic leader with a proven track record of building profitable companies, creating capable teams, and driving change to augment organizational capabilities. She has 30 years of work experience across diverse industries, of which 13 have been as CEO and Managing Director for leading MNCs. Ms. Sahai has successfully strategized and launched new categories and concepts for leading brands in India in Indian and international markets. She has been part of companies setting up operations in India and businesses that need to be turned around. Currently, she serves as Managing Director of Timex India. Before Timex, Ms. Sharmila Sahai was a Managing Director of Shinhisar India Limited. Her other experiences were with Philips, Sony, Dabur India, and Kelvinator. Sharmila holds a BA from Lady Shri Ram College, University of Delhi, India, and a postgraduate diploma of Marketing Management from the Center of Management and Development, India. Ms. Sharmila holds a certificate from the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, for completing an executive program in leadership and business strategy. May I now request Ms. Sahai to kindly share her thoughts on leadership in the new reality, redefining the leadership role. We welcome
Ms. Sharmila Sahai had shared her desktop, and we were wondering during her introduction, we had her introductory slide. I think Ms. Sahai, you are sharing your desktop out here.
I'm sharing my PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, you were trying to share that. It's okay, but it's stuck on your desktop right now. The presentation is still not open, ma'am.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely okay, ma'am. I was just trying to figure out whose screen is shared, but still we can't see your PPT.
So,
Ms. Sharmila, these are the new learnings of our online technology,
I'll try once again. Can you see it now?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, now it is visible, ma'am.
Put it on F5, ma'am. That's okay.
Yeah.
Right. So you can hear me and you can see my screen also, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for the introduction, Kritika, and Dr. Bansal. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real honor for me to be invited to address this forum. I also want to say it's a pleasure to meet all my co-speakers, and good afternoon to all the students joining in today. Like you said, yeah, I wish this was being held at our campus, and I really miss the excitement of attending these conferences in person. But I really marvel the way mankind has reinvented and reimagined our work economies so that pandemic was not able to stop our lives. Like a lot of things which have changed, the role of leaders has also been redefined in this new reality. Leadership in different fields, politics, economics, social life, everything has changed a lot. Some leaders have showed the world what new leadership will look like in the new normal. There are the likes of the New Zealand Prime Minister who has really inspired me. But before we go into the details of the changing role of leadership, let us agree to what the new reality is. So yeah, even prior to the pandemic, the pace of change in the consumer behavior, especially the shopping behavior, was changing. The technology, the digital transformation in our day-to-day work was really changing. But pandemic and the related lockdown situation really accelerated the adoption of the change. The Bitcoin, the metaverse, they would have happened anyway, whether pandemic happened or did not happen. But now the rate of adoption to this is really very fast and very high. So to answer the question, what is the new reality? The new reality is that we are living in uncertain, volatile, and complex world. And the new reality is that it is constantly going to change. We cannot have the same leadership styles to manage the new normal. The roles of leadership will change as per the new as per the businesses we are in. A leadership in a cash-rich company is different from a cash-strapped company. A leadership in an IT company is very different from a retail company or a finance company. Leadership in listed, unlisted companies are really different. So, my learning, which I'm very humbly sharing with all of you today, comes from working from a cash-strapped listed manufacturing industry and an industry which makes watches, which is a discretionary product. So the past 2 years really has been quite challenging for me and people like me in the sector which I am. If I think back on the past 2 years, and like Dr. Bansal was saying, now we have come out of it and we are seeing economies come back, business come back. So when I think about when I was starting to make this presentation, I think the 5 things which I would like to, which I think helped me in this uncertain times was visioneering and scenario planning, flexibility and adaptability, bias for action and decision making, empathy and authentic leadership, and consumer-centric behavior. Let me start with the visioning. So, the visioning starts with the problem and situation analysis. So let me explain this with an example. In March 2020, when the lockdown, the number of cases was going up and suddenly the lockdown was announced, our key focus was employees. We were really focused on people should not fall ill, they should not go to the hospital, all our locations should be sanitized. People were working from home, so we focused on enabling IT support to the people. So this was a focus. But as April came, we realized that this lockdown will last more than 3 to 6 months. We did not know how long it will last. Then we realized, our focus should be preserving cash. Our vision changed, and we knew that if we run out of cash, there will be no people also. So, there was no sales happening. Even e-commerce for discretionary products was stopped. There was no earning and there were expenses of rent, salaries, etc. The bankers refused to increase the working capital. With the vision of preserving cash, we worked on multiple scenarios. So the whole management team and the key leadership got together and we said, our vision is to preserve cash and get through this crisis. And we started making various scenarios If it lasts for 3 months, what will you do? If it lasts for 5 months, what will we do? What are the costs we should cut? What are the costs we should keep it remaining? So making these multiple scenarios in this unpredictable situation helped first the management team to get confidence. While doing the scenario planning, we didn't know what will work. But when we did so many scenarios, the management team felt, oh, there is a solution to everything. And that really helped us. And then as a listed company, we presented to a board that, look, we have our act together. So the stakeholder management was important. When we presented our scenarios and our cash flow plan, the board also got confidence. So, so this is really important. It might feel that it is really too much and very cumbersome making so many scenarios. Actually, we made 21 different scenarios, but it really helps in this situation. And I would really strongly like to recommend this. But this, I come to the second part. Once you make the scenarios, the flexibility and the adaptability is important. The role of the leader is to, it's not the leader to be flexible and adaptable. The whole team should become flexible and adaptable. And the role of the leader is to create an environment for the team so that they are flexible, adaptable, and entrepreneurial. I've worked for many multinationals, Dutch multinationals, German, Japanese. And throughout my career, I have been working with this process-oriented mindset. There are processes, you need to follow it. But India market, if you understand the word jugaad, it was so dynamic. Things were changing so fast that you always needed to have a jugaad. And throughout my career, I used to request my bosses for special, a leniency towards some processes. I used to make presentation, have the buy-in. So I think all this really helped, in the flexibility and the adaptability, not sticking to the processes in the time of uncertainty is really important. So in the past 2 years, working with exceptions with the processes really helped us to come out of crisis. Just to give you an example, in Timex, all the retailers were closed. Even the e-commerce for discretionary products were closed. Sitting at home, we worked on an omni-channel concept. We had watches in our warehouse, we had people in our warehouse, and we had the consumers who were wanting to do the gifting for marriages, etc. So we sat at home and we told our bosses, look, please allow us, there are the regular process, you need so many approvals, X, Y, Z. But within 45 days, we were able to set up our omni-channel. Also, as a watch manufacturer, we never explored OEM manufacturing. There are companies, fashion companies who want to do watches, and we offered to do OEM business for them. So again, in the normal times, I would have had to take 100 approvals from 100 people. People would not allow, but being flexible and adaptable, even my bosses allowed this kind of environment for me, which really helped us get out of this crisis and thrive even better. We are now doing even better than the pre-pandemic situation. So with this flexibility and adaptability, the most important thing is decision-making. In this uncertain world, the leader does not have the luxury to sit on a decision. You can't say, okay, I'll think about it and tell you. The crisis is there. Your cash will run out tomorrow. So you need to take action. You know what? Not making a decision is also a decision. So if you want to make that decision that you're not going to make a decision. But communicate to the team. It is very important that the team knows the decision, which direction they are working. It helps their productivity. It helps them to focus. And if you don't take a decision, it causes a lot of stress to all of them. And causing stress lowers productivity. So with this, I come to this next trait, which I think is very, very important. Bosses or leaders need to have empathy and authenticity. You can't fake empathy. All leaders, there were days when all decisions were made because of the balance sheet, but now you need to think about the people. the people, you would have heard about the great resignation. Really, all corporate business houses are struggling with retaining employees. People have other options. The environment is very different that day. So if you don't take care of your people, you will have no one to work for you. So empathy is really, really important. And, again, empathy is like, I'll give you one example. So I could see there was a problem between the warehouse team and the e-commerce team. The e-commerce team was working out of Goa. I mean, they were allowed to do work from home, but the warehouse team, they can't work from home. So they were giving them a difficult time. While talking, they did not tell me upfront, but I realized they were grudging the fact that some people are working from home and they have to sit in the warehouse in the heat and dust and do the work. So I, said, okay, let's do this closing and let's all go to Goa and celebrate company paid expense. That really helped. So you need to empathize how these guys are feeling. And especially for non-IT companies, it's become a real challenge. All of us can't work from home. The factory and the warehouse guys have to work from their locations. So, this is what I feel is really, really important for the leaders of the future. So now I come to the next most important thing. Here, before I start this, I'll quote Richard Branson. He says, you can take care of your employees and then they will take care of your consumer. That is why, ideally consumer centricity is so important. It should be the #1 trait. But I really believe if you take care of your employees, they will take care of the consumer. Now, in this world, there is so much data available. The CEO can see all the data points, who is coming to the website, what is he surfing, why is he abandoning the cart, even in the market, what products are working. Everything, data is absolutely there. And the CEO needs to focus on the consumer one-to-one. When I started my career 30 years ago, we used to focus on the middlemen. They were the dealers, distributors. But now I have to change myself. I get data. I can see what are the changes. I can change my marketing. I can change my business models according to what the consumers are thinking. So if you don't focus on the consumers now, I think it will be very, very difficult to survive, because each company needs to have a one-to-one connect with the consumer. So that is really, really important for us. And so with that, I come to the end of the presentation, and I'll summarize with the quote from Satya Nadella. And, what he says is, it is an uncertain world. It is an uncertain times. The role of leadership is to get clarity in this time. So I think that really very well summarizes what the role of the leader is in the uncertain world. And with that, I thank you all. And I don't know if I can take questions. I'll be happy to take questions if you have any.
Ma'am, we'll take it at the end of the session.
Beg your pardon?
Ma'am, we take it at the end of the session.
Okay, thank you so much. So with that, I wish you all loads of success. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am, for your deliberations. It was really thought-provoking. You really gave apt pointers, of leadership, how, the leader have to be empathetic, how they have to be flexible, and not only them, but the entire team. Just to share, ma'am, I would just like to tell you, I connected with you because I did my internship of MBA with Titan and Timex, and the topic was comparison of the Titan and Timex aesthetic looks. So that is how we connected, and it was really a pleasure having you, the top man of the company. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Kritika. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sahai, for such wonderful insights that you've shared. We are honored to have amongst us. I think sir has again shared the slide out here. It's okay. We are honored to have amongst us Professor Dr. Paul Brown, Professor of Organizational Neuroscience, Monarch Business School, Switzerland. Dr. Brown is the Chairman and Managing Director of Iron Consulting International Private Limited, As a practicing clinical and organizational psychologist in the year 2008, Dr. Paul Brown held the world's first visiting professional appointment in organizational neuroscience at London's South Bank University, following his visiting professorship in individual and organizational psychology at Nottingham Law School in the year 2002 till 2011. He is also a visiting professor at Henley Business School, UK, and is attached to 3 UK universities. Dr. Brown taught annually at the UK's Royal College of Defence Studies for 25 years and has taught as a guest lecturer at the Fulbright Harvard Kennedy Economics Teaching Program in Vietnam. Practicing for the past 50 years, not only as a clinical and organizational psychologist, but also as an executive coach and supervisor, Dr. Paul has co-authored many books, including Neuropsychology for Coaches, Understanding the Basics, River Dragon, All the Brains in the Business, to name a few. May I humbly request Dr. Paul Brown to share his valuable insights with all present.
Thank you very much indeed. Can you hear me? And you've got my screen?
Yes, sir, I can hear you. We all can hear you, and we can see your screen also, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. So I want to talk about knowing about the brain and how that makes for better leaders. We are at an extraordinary moment in understanding this amazing organ, how the brain works. And it feels to me like it must have been in the 17th century when Newton and his colleagues began to understand that there were ways of thinking about the world that if we could understand the natural laws experimentally, we could get a different way of thinking about the world than just that it was God-given and God-controlled. Well, I think so far as human behavior is concerned, we're on the edge of a Newtonian moment ourselves. So I wanted very briefly to start with a little bit of knowledge and then move into insights and to action as this program is devised. So a very quick summary of the way the brain works. And I'm talking about the stuff inside your skull. It's spongy, it's amazingly convoluted. The brain folds in on itself in all kinds of ways because the more we need power in the brain, the more the brain has developed. It's had to fold in on itself because the skull cannot get any bigger. If the skull got any bigger, we could not be born. So the brain folds in on itself and it looks like a very large squashy walnut if you see it in real life. There are 86 billion individual cells that are connected by complex chemistry. And the chemistry is stimulated by little electrical signals. So listening to me speaking, the nerves attached to your ear are creating little electrical signals, and that is going into your brain, creating amazingly complex chemical responses. And those chemical responses are very particular to each of you. Your brain, everybody listening to this, is unlike anybody else's brain. So though the material from which it's connected is much like anybody else's, the actual interior decoration comes from your particular experience. And isn't it amazing? We've got these 5 senses: sight, sound in the ear, smell, taste, all locked into this small area of the face. And then we've got touch. And the brain manages to make sense of that. And all the incoming signals create patterns through experience, which then create meaning. And we are the only animals, so far as we know, that have an adaptive language. And it's in this extraordinary thing called language that we try to convey meaning to other people. But one of the great discoveries of this century is that the brain works bottom upwards. Information comes in here and it goes through the middle of the brain and then is distributed up into the pathways of the brain. We used to think that the brain was controlled by the way we thought about things. But actually, I'm going to show you that it's controlled by the way we feel about things. We have, when we come into the world, day one as a baby, 8 basic emotions. And the first is surprise and startle. Little baby coming into the world is startled to be in the world and cries instantly, typically. Ah, that baby is alive. Now, we have within our system, I'm going left round this fan, the escape avoidance emotions: fear, anger, disgust, shame, and sadness. And those are what got us here. If any of you have got a favorite horse, your horse will show those reactions. A dog shows those reactions. The higher apes show those reactions. They are what make us safe and got us here. But on this escape avoidance dimension at the bottom here, at the other side, we've got the attachment emotions, the great emotions of human experience, excitement, joy, and trust and love. But they are not primary survival emotions. We thrive under those conditions, but they can be switched off very quickly if fear, anger, or the other escape avoidance emotions come in. And many organizations run themselves off subacute levels of fear. They squash the real creative capacities of people. And one of the extraordinary things of this last 2 years is how governments generally have traded on fear without any understanding of what the outcome of that would be. We could come back to that in questions if we want to. That's an immensely condensed summary of what would otherwise be a 6-month lecture program on the brain. The brain tells us now, the insight of the 21st century is that we are energy systems, just like the rest of the physical world. We are not primarily psychological systems. The 20th century was fascinated by psychology, but it turns out that psychology is really a set of disputatious theories. It creates enormous number of psychological journals, but there are more than 50 main theoretical positions in psychology, and psychologists have never agreed what it is they're talking about. They're wonderful at disagreeing, and it keeps academics very happy. But now, what we're understanding from the modern brain sciences is we are energy systems. Well, then we could begin to think about how do we harness that energy organizationally? Another insight, it's our emotions that control us. Hyphenate that word, E-motion. Embedded in that word is an understanding that energy creates action. Because when any signal comes in to your brain, and again, go back to thinking about any baby that you've had or that you know, any small child, the way we make sense of the world is through the extraordinary radar system that is our emotional system, and it's the mix of the emotions that create feelings. If you think of all the great paintings in the world, they've been made from 3 primary colors. The mixes of those colors have created the extraordinary complexity of the paintings. Well, for us human beings, it's the mixing of the 8 basic emotions that create feelings. And the more we can tune our feeling system, the more subtly we can understand the world, the more we can develop our aesthetic about anything. I have a friend who's a very fine accountant, and he can look at a set of complex figures and he'll know very quickly whether they make sense or not, whether they somehow are right or not quite right. And then he can work out why they're right or not quite right. But there's something in his tuned system in which he can feel what the figures are telling him. Well, that comes from the refining of his feeling system. So our thinking system is attached to language and give us an account of what our brain already knows. So it's our brain that is managing us. And what our thinking system is doing is giving us the capacity to try and work out what our brain already knows. So our thinking system is there to give us a story about what's going on inside us. We don't control ourselves through our thinking system. We control ourselves. We are controlled by our brain functioning. After all, if you think about it logically, you couldn't have a thought if the thought wasn't already there. So the brain sets it up before we can get it into consciousness. So the brain is the organ of adaptation. And in that lovely presentation from Ms. Sahai, she was talking about the capacity to be adaptive and flexible. And organizations need to create the conditions under which that adaptability is possible, because the brain has the capacity to adapt unless it's being switched into the escape avoidance emotions, in which case it tries just to survive. It's also the organ of relationship. And it seems to me that the 21st century sustainable organization is going to max on the quality of relationship, the quality of encounter. Also, of course, the purpose for being there, the vision of the company. But actually, people out of this 2 years of this extraordinary worldwide experiment that we've had, people want to know what is the quality of relationship inside an organization. People are no longer willing just to sell their souls to the company for the sake of a salary. It's beginning to look like that. How do we create organizations in which the value of the relationship is a primary quality for people wanting to be there and wanting to stay? So the brain is always doing its best for you. It can only do that, however, on the basis of the experience that you have made it, that have made it the unique brain that it is. No one else in the world has a brain quite like yours. And so the brain never makes mistakes. If it did, we could never trust it. But it may run out of adaptive capacity, and then we can begin to feel stressed. But the brain never. You may make a decision and you think 2 seconds later, that was the wrong decision. Why couldn't you have understood that 4 seconds earlier? It's not until the decision has been made that the neurochemistry connected to the decision has come into play, that the brain knows what the decision is. And this sense of just knowing is profoundly important. And so concepts like mental health, big concern in many organizations at the moment, they need a major reconsideration in the light of this knowledge, because the brain is the most extraordinary neurochemical factory, and it generally prefers not to be interfered with chemically. It's so complex that actually most of the mood-altering drugs that go into it, it's not understood how they really work. There are some broad ideas, but the detail of it is not understood at all. And in other contexts, I'm doing work with organizations to redefine what this unfortunate concept of mental health is about. What we want in organizations is resilience, not there's something wrong with me, somebody else will fix it, which is physical health. Somebody else will be an expert, they can give me something. All we can do is give ourselves the capacity to cope. But how do we do that? We do it out of the quality of relationship within which we exist. So let's shift into action. The middle part of the brain is called the limbic system. It's where emotion and memory lie. And I've defined the limbic leader as somebody who has the capacity to connect with other people in all sorts of small ways as well as big ways, is courageous. It dares to be the speaker of truth to themselves, first of all, and then the speaker of truth as is necessary organizationally. The leader needs to be clever enough, but needs to be recognizing when other people are cleverer and can hire those people and get good value out of them. The leader needs to walk their own talk and inspire others into action. And the consequence of having those 5 capacities, and again, we go back to something that Ms. Sahai was saying right at the end of her presentation. This person is worth following because the common denominator of those qualities is the individual trusts him or herself. And so others experience that person as being worth trusting. And once you've got that, energy flows into the attachment emotions. Energy flows into quiet excitement, quiet joy, quiet satisfaction, trust. I love going to work. Wow. And so as a limbic leader, you would have the capacity to release the energies of others in pursuit of the strategic and operational goals of your organization. So these slides will come to you. What haven't we covered? Huge amount of stuff. The redesign of HR from a brain-based point of view. We now can begin to say things from real science about the human being in a way that in the 20th century we have not been able to say. And that suggests to me that HR has the opportunity to become a knowledge-based part of the organization, not just a technique, practice-based part of the organization. You know, in many large organizations, HR is the only organization which, when you talk about it, people roll their eyes slightly. I know one big international oil industry company which calls HR hate and revenge. And there's a curious thing goes on in organizations where people know they need this stuff about people, but they don't actually entirely trust HR. I think there is a new period developing over the next 20 years in which HR reformulates itself based upon the brain sciences. And then we need to think, what is an organization? There's no agreement in organizational theory as to what an organization actually is. How do we map and track this extraordinary stuff called human energy flowing around the organization? How do we understand where it's blocked, where it's not functioning, where it's jammed up? The brain is an extraordinarily complex system of parallel systems going on at the same time. And yet it presents itself to us and to the outside world across all the complex boundaries that it has, different departments. It presents itself as a unitary whole. All of you will have had experience of organizations where departments fight with each other, or don't give access, or are secretive, or protect what they have. The amount of energy that's wasted there. How could we create an organization which flows towards its strategic and operational goals? And then there are very interesting differences being discovered between male and female brains. It looks as if female brains operate in both halves at the same time. And female brains think about things around the corner. They are both and systems. Male brains are either or systems. Men want answers. Women want to look for solutions. And then there are some very interesting new sciences developing, which we haven't touched on at all. And so there's some reading. And I've exactly filled my time, and thank you so much for letting me be part of this session with you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was so interesting and engrossing, and especially, being from the HR, taking it from the HR perspective, how we can actually redesign the HR using the brain-based view. We all here would like to understand more. Probably, I would be reading more of your books to get those insights. It was so thought-provoking. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown.
We'll make Amity a world leader in that.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
presence and for your wonderful address.
Thank you so much.
We feel privileged with the presence of Mr. Shivendra Mohan, CEO, Proficient Logistics Service. Mr. Mohan is the logistics consulting professional and CEO of Proficient Logistics Service with 2 decades of experience in logistics industry. An Amitian from 1997 to 1999 PGDM badge, Mr. Mohan was recruited by LG Electronics as a part of his campus placement and worked with them till 2000 in sales and marketing, where he was a top performer and was sent to South Korea for advanced product training. Mr. Shivendra Mohan started his career as an entrepreneur in 2002 with his first company, Mohan Marketing Managers, with a warehousing capacity of 5,000 square feet and 10 employees. Today, his flagship company, PLS, has grown to a turnover of 10 crores with 164 employees, catering to clients like LG Electronics, Crompton Greaves, Madura Coats, and JSW Paints, and covers an area in excess of 2 lakh square feet. Apart from this, Mr. Mohan has diversified into global education, real estate, and has launched a company in Canada as well. May I request Mr. Shivendra Mohan to kindly deliver his key insights on the theme.
Mr. Shivendra, before you start, Kritika, I think you should have said firstly our own Shivendra Mohan. That would have been more suitable. All the esteemed panelists over here, Mr. Shivendra Mohan is from 1999 batch of MIT Business School. Thank you so very much, Shivendra. We really feel proud to see you all, and I request you, please, you have a wonderful audience over here. This program is being seen by plenty of people through YouTube channel also. And today we have the physical presence of some students. So if you can, before the start of this your topic, I mean, if you can just say something to the students who are sitting in F2 auditorium and F3 seminar hall, at least say hello to them, or you can just say a few words.
First,
all the audience in F2 auditorium and F3 seminar hall, one of your super senior, Mr. Shivendra Mohan. Yes, yeah, please.
I would like to begin by complimenting Mr. Brown and Mr. Sahai for their excellent presentations. I hope to live up to the expectations. Students, the first thing that I want to talk about COVID is the questions came from out of syllabus. We did MBA, we have been doing business for 20 years, and we thought we knew the answers. And all the questions were out of syllabus. Suddenly things that were not important. I was 43 when this whole mess started. Succession planning was not a part of the thought process. Now, in MBA, in management, everybody talks about succession planning, but in your midlife, most of us are not planning for it. Stupid questions like, how will money come if tomorrow I'm ill, incapacitated, or dead? Are we carrying enough insurance as an individual? Are we carrying enough insurance as a company? Now, when you're an entrepreneur, you really don't have a boss to run to for answers. The buck stops at you, and every mistake that you make changes the lives of a few hundred people who are trusting your judgment. So let me take you to a slightly different perspective. We've all seen what life was. So now, after having heard Ms. Sahai and Mr. Brown, I'm not going to go too much into COVID because they've dealt with it beautifully. So yes, we saw a disruption that nobody had anticipated. Sales figures began to dip. companies started moving left and right, trying to stay afloat, because status quo was no longer acceptable. If you did nothing, you were bound to go down. So something had to be done, and that's something everybody had a different view at. Now, coming straight to the point, you will be faced with very tough questions, and those questions will be answered by taking very tough decisions. This is, as Sharmila ma'am said, this is not the time to dither. There was a time when the best answer was, I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. Sorry, boss. That is now a thing of the past. Now you need to assess the situation. You have to anticipate what will be the impact. Like, again, I'm quoting Sharmila ma'am. They ran scenarios. What if? What will be the result of a particular course? Plan, delegate. The biggest problem with today's managers is tu hat main karta hu. We think we can do everything. Because of our experience, we may know it a little better than the person who's trying to assist us. But unless you give them a chance, they will never learn. Then one thing which I learned in COVID is that I am not the manager. There is somebody else who draws the salary of being a manager for a particular location. I am not the accountant. What am I? Who am I? What is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is the creator of systems. Our job is to create a system that is sustainable and to ensure that it is implemented and it stays that way. In pandemic, you will have to be very focused, because what pandemic has done is it has disrupted the system. When we were studying HR, were talked about cross-functional training. Sounds very nice. When the government said only 50% of your employees can go and sit in the office, those of us who had done cross-functional training could manage. The other 50 were complaining, boss, Sharma to aaya nahi, aaj Sharma ka weekly off hai, yaar. He is not turned up for duty because of government sanction of only 50% manpower. How do we manage? Remember, you are as good as the level of training of your manpower. Now, what are the 4 Ds? The 4 Ds of leadership are discover. Discover continuously, learn every day. If you are not in touch with the grassroots workers, re-establish your contacts. If you're not in touch with your customers, go have a cup of coffee with them. Because only when you understand what is the problem or you understand what is the solution, you'll be able to decide what design you want to do. Once you design, move fast, decide and implement. Because this war will be won by people who move fast. Now, everybody talks about new normal. What is the new normal? So what is your role in the new normal? You must have a roadmap. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. You will make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But be very clear about the roadmap that you have. have goals that can be mapped, and every goal must be mapped with a timeline, because a goal without a timeline is something like a directive principle of state policy in the Indian Constitution. That should happen. When it will happen, nobody knows. So please put definite timelines. And then try to do your best. Try to do your best means what we did was, we could not guarantee that people will not die, but we could guarantee that all our employees are double vaccinated. We could guarantee that nobody could roam around our premises without masks. We could guarantee that anybody, the security guard was empowered to ask anybody who is not following COVID protocol to leave. So please make sure that it is these dotting the I's and crossing the T's that is done properly. And define how you want the new strategies to work. One very painful aspect of this pandemic is that we've all lost someone we love. And the second, even more painful part is that we have not been given a respite to sit and properly grieve. I am speaking from personal experience. I lost my father in the pandemic. I had a few hundred mouths to feed. I could not sit and grieve. Third day, I was back in office. And this is not my story. This is a story of most of the people. We've lost someone, yet we've not had the time to lick our wounds. So whenever you're dealing with an employee, if an empathy is something Sharmila ma'am had again and again emphasized on, because yes, you need to change. Empathy now needs to be a part of every decision that you do. And you need to be very transparent. Something that was completely authoritarian and totalitarian before this pandemic has now become very transparent. We are having to talk to our middle management, to our workers much more frequently. And to maintain confidence in operations, you have to provide frequent updates. Now, the biggest thing that we've done is not provide sanitizers. The biggest thing that we've done is not provide masks. The biggest thing that we've done is communications. When we were facing pure governmental orders, lockdown, everything is shut, what were we doing? We were just instructing them, do this, do this, do this. Then came the time where some governments opened up, some governments did not open up. Some of us who were running multi-state operations had to adjust and manage in whatever way was possible. UP was in lockdown, Delhi was operational. So remember, you must communicate and you must move your communication as per the requirement of the situation. Because the employees will be confused in the beginning, they will be anxious, then they'll be uneasy. And you have to keep yourself steady. Because we have all changed, have we not? Attending Zoom meetings at one point of time 2 years back was something that was meant only and exclusively for meeting clients that were 7 seas apart. The pandemic taught me that the government gave only a pass for 7 people. I had to choose whether I am going in that 7 people or my manager. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce that I let my manager go because I thought I could do a job with Zoom, and yes, we managed. Now, this is the interesting part. Every business, there is no, what was that, band-aid. There is no band-aid for COVID that I can give you one fix that will cure all your ills. So depending upon the extent that the disruption has caused to your industry, you will have to take a call. Whether there are some industries like pharma who have benefited. There are others like hotel and hospitality that have been hit very hard. Now, at this point of time, I would like to mention a friend of mine. He was in the hospitality industry, and due to government regulations, all restaurants were shut. Now, faced with the stark option of having to let go of all the manpower, he said, I have top quality manpower, I have the best food suppliers in the city. Let me start selling quality food stuff. So he started providing cut, chopped vegetables, top quality fruits, imported foods, home delivered, because all his staff that was cooking and delivering food was sitting idle. And when he started it, his customers did not believe him that you will start selling raw material instead of selling finished food. But he managed it, and he managed it beautifully. Throughout lockdown, not one day did his employees have to sit idle. Thank you. You people have been a wonderful, wonderful audience. I don't see too many people sleeping in the auditorium. And I hope that if anybody has any doubts, you can please come forward in the Q&A session. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Shiven. It is always a pleasure listening to you, and we are really thankful for accepting the invitation, and you're, up at 2 o'clock in Canada. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shivendra. You rightly said, when you started your address to our students, that the COVID question is out of the question paper. I would just like to add here, so the COVID question is out of the question paper, and unfortunately, we all got a different question paper during the COVID times. Each of us, whichever sector we were working, whatever family backgrounds we had our own unique challenges during those times. And it is the leadership, at our workplaces, which has actually made the difference in our lives to a great extent. Taking it forward from here, it is our honor to have amongst us Mr. Manas Sinha, founder, MD, and CEO in Televectra Technology. Mr. Sinha is an experienced sales professional with extensive experience in the IT domain for over 27 plus years, including that in IBM, which entailed stints in sales, product management, branding, technology, business development, and training portfolio. Currently, Mr. Sinha has taken a new initiative to create a difference in the IT solutions and services sector, especially in the enterprise space, through a dynamic and innovative approach with the introduction of new technologies related to cybersecurity, business digitization, hyper-converged infrastructure, hybrid cloud, application modernization, and also in the complex systems automation area. His objective is to achieve excellence in the field of operations by focusing on identifying and deploying qualitative technology and generating high value for the organization through dynamic architectural and thoughtful designing methodologies. I request Mr. Manas Sinha to put forth his valuable viewpoints on the session theme.
Good evening, everyone. The Amity team and Mr. Brown, Ms. Sahai, Mr. Sivinder, and Ms. Kalra, and the dear students who are watching this session. It's been an honor, to represent the IT background as an option to share exactly what we went through, the new initiatives that we found out in these last 2 years, and also how we have shaped ourselves and what we see in the overall business domain, what makes us think as to how the leadership in any of these particular field that we are talking about is going to change, and how we all adapting to it. Going through some of the earlier presentations, it was quite a good revelation, and in terms of also understanding how people in other industries, the way they have shaped up, the way they have changed their perspective, and the way they have actually redefined and redesignated the entire scope of connecting with the workforce and connecting with the people, like what Mr. Brown said, is also creating a kind of a familiar incentivization of creating a personal relationship with these set of people, which ensure that they did not look that as a job, but they looked at it as part of their own growth of as an extended family options, which we always say that we do. But I think it made more sense while the crisis of COVID came up across and the world changed forever. And we all have gone through the same pain and tribulations and are now have reached some place where you're going to define a lot of things which we are working. In the technology field where I work in, I mean, we are into a lot of a mix of both infrastructure and software services. So it's a mix of how we work together across with clients. During these 2 years that the pandemic has actually taken us, we had to devise a lot of new initiatives, how we were able to make with the regulations with the government put up because of the COVID situation, the customer interface where some of them wanted to interface because they were projects where you needed to be part of that particular team to deliver those solutions. And in a lot of places where you had to redefine the way, since you were not able to travel also a lot of places, but you had to also deliver at a certain given point of time. So it was a mix of the new, the unknown, and also the established factors of how we are defining the roadmap ahead. And it was very, very interesting. So between, and because as what Mr. Sivender also said, because the market dominance also plays a role, the way you see things across, the customers are waiting for certain things, everyone has a deadline to do it in spite of how you face challenges. So how do you do is, how do you adapt to things? How do you see what is a new reality, and how based on that you have to deliver on those committed promise lines and give these things. And that was the difference between a lot of companies which survived through these ordeals and a lot of them which shut down. It was about who could adapt and who could not. So it was not necessarily, and then a lot of organizations also had to cut down on their entire aspect of how they could move forward, or they had to retrench people because the business was not coming, or even if they were coming, they were with a certain profitability which would ensure that people were let go. Not a very happy moment for everyone, but everyone had to adapt and move forward. But the beauty of all of these is, it's like something being created out of natural disaster, and how you could shape your thoughts, shape your promises of how you ensure that you're going to take care of the people, which is what Ms. Sahai also said about, how much of empathy that you could bring to the table. And at the same time, ensure that you were also able to run an organization successfully without really killing it out the way quite a few organizations had to. So between these two, so we had also to do is, renegotiate, relearn, and redeploy the entire thought process to ensure that we were running fairly decently. So a lot of transformations happened, and this transformation meant in the IT segment, and which was more of an enabler and a tool, that we were fast forwarding and moving to a digitalized world much more than the earlier 5 years had done. Remember, most of us as a human nature, we work across on a comfort zone. So we only get pushed. There are a lot of people who are more disciplined and plan that, but quite a few organizations, people, the way you want to look at it, need some kind of a situation to really transform at a much faster pace. And this the 2 years taught us that, which meant that we had to go and deploy a lot of digitalized solutions, which ensure that we fast forward and leap forward to the new reality of working remotely, working from different geographies, because travel was not there, and also delivering whatever was supposed to be delivered with a timeline which was not extended too much, but obviously given some kind of a mandate to deliver across. So all of these meant there were new ways and means of delivering these. There were a lot of e-learning which came in across. There were a lot of a way of doing a video conferencing. Zoom, which was a non-entity 3 years back, is probably one of the best known organizations in the world. So the entire shape of how business happened and also how people connected changed forever. And this is going to be going forward also. This is the way it is going to really look through. And if you see the world going forward, and quite a few of you would have been following Shark Tank India, if you see the key people who came in across there, most of the businesses, if you see, were either formed or idealized, or probably a concept came up during this COVID, because people were forced to rethink what would make them more of an entity, given what was a traditional way of doing business 3 years down the line is no longer a valid way of moving forward. So that shaped everyone to relook at things. That shaped everyone to reconsider their options of what makes sense for all of us to look into the future and probably regain that strength of the structure which we were always thinking was there across, but because of these 2 years shattered a lot of dreams and probably forced us to rethink about it. So that is how we see things to happen across there. So a lot of remote work which is currently there wasn't there 3 years back, but that is also because we are now getting into a new realm of how things move. So and which meant a lot of learning needed to be done, and these learning were not possible in person across what was there across there 3 years back. So which meant you had to have a robust infrastructure to support it. You had to have a great connectivity to plan that across, and you had to even the way we were transforming our learning methodology also changed. So if you see any of, even in your own university, virtual connect and people working from their own homes and any other places in remote locations were able to go back and connect to the digital world and learn things across, which ensured that this is going to stay. And wherever, so it no longer means that you need to be forced to come to a physical infrastructure to really learn, but also shape up things about how we were going to reorganize ourselves and ensure that the transformation happens for all of us across there. So what are the new trends that we see across there? So we see a lot of digitalization, and being in IT, I can be very honest. Organizations which we were tracking a few years back, and while we wanted to shape up their digital perspective, were taking a lot more time to probably commemorate whether this made sense right now. They could do it partially for 1 or 2 particular processes, are now very, very keen to go ahead full-fledged. Now, anything when you want to do full-fledged, you have to plan that. So that's something which we learned, that digital is going to be the new era of shaping our destiny going forward. What we also found about was also about data. Now, data, whether it is in terms of creating data, managing data, archiving that data, or able to access that data whenever the need was, that's also something which we all learned is going to be a huge factors. And that's the new gold. I mean, if you actually look at someone who has access to data has become more important. Content is more important than the way you're going to deliver it across. See the OTT world, whoever has the best content actually wins through. So that became the factor about how and what made sense for all of us to look at it. And then, even though all of these came up across there, the consumers wanted the right of privacy, because digital world was pervading everywhere, whether it's home, office, and anywhere. So how could we really not really come back to a place where our privacies were being invaded, which currently is still on a very, very high phase, but at least there has been more checks and balances and about how we wanted to do things across that will ensure that we don't really think this is the right way to do it. So that is the next set of things across what customers wanted. Going to the other trends. So social media is a very, very important aspect again, because social media is defining how we are looking at things across there. More crowded, anything which is good, bad, or ugly. Earlier days, you had to file a complaint, or you wanted to figure out what made sense. You don't have to do it. I mean, you are accessing the social media across different platforms, Twitter, Insta, Facebook, more importantly, LinkedIn for professionals like us. It's actually creating a lot more different aspect of how we are going to reach out, how we're going to shape things, and how we're going to establish our own presence and create brands. So social media is more important nowadays than what it was earlier. Then there's a lot of technology coming into play, and technology such as AI, talk about virtualization. So all of these are also new trends which are coming across. Aspects about how we define our characteristics of any of the application software that we're bringing to the table is built and backed by artificial intelligence. I mean, you no longer need to have an added set of people working because we are working across on a very, very invasive workforce and an invasive work field right now. So use tools and technologies to ensure that you have a cutting edge offering process. So AI and virtualization is going to play a very, very major role. And the last trend, remote work, as I mentioned, you don't have to physically be there in office to create things, but that is the new way of how we are looking at things to work on. So what happens, how you lead into the future? What is a leader going to do, and how is that they're going to shape things across there? So again, going back to some of the previous speakers, you need to have a very clear play field in terms of having a vision. And vision, typically, if you again look at it long back, we have a very long vision, about 20 years, 25 years. It shortened down to about 1 year, and how you need to plan it across, but it's no longer there. So you have to have a short, mid, and a long-term vision, and then play accordingly to what is the adaptability of the situation at that point in time. So which means you plan accordingly, you anticipate the future, and you really use this as more of a creative discipline within yourself, knowing that you have to follow and adapt to certain structures, are also going to be creative and also going to be flexible to adapt to whatever the new realities are all about. So today, being nowadays, COVID came up across that shaped and changed our world. Tomorrow there could be something else. So how much are we going to do it? I mean, these changes, the results that we have actually done is something that has made sure that we need to relook at things across there. We do not need to plan or probably look things only from a short-term perspective, but something which we are going to create which aren't there across there. So when you anticipate the future, when you define a lot of structure, you go through those perspective of what needs to be defined. You ensure that leadership is not about just someone who's there at the top to define, and otherwise this is a learning. Every single person, whether it's a manager or even someone who's going to deliver, need to think like leader. Leaders are not to be defined right for the people who are at the top to define. Yes, there's a framework which they define, as Mr. Shivendra said, being an entrepreneur, you're going to define the framework, the roadmap, but each single person, as any single person, right, from the junior most person in the organization till the senior most, have to be a leader in their own right. So they define on the framework across the topmost leaders, the mid management, again ensures that that particular framework is followed, and the people at the bottom layer also ensures that they follow that thing and add more value the way that this new adaptation needs to be done. So those are the way that we look at it. So as a plan of action, the way I see things, and this is again a part of my learning which I've done, you need to have a very clear strategy for leading. I mean, you cannot be fumbling, you cannot be doing things across as and when it happens. It is always good to be adaptable to changes, always good to be flexible, but there has to be a structure to about what you're planning to do. Get this structure and strategy absolutely clear. So that defines the way you're going to do it. No changes, no major shift into things across which aren't planned. So plan that across. And then the second part is get the right kind of people, because remember, you can have a strategy, you can have an organization, you can have all the financial muscle power, but if you don't have the right kind of people, I think that's the biggest challenge. So have the right kind of people, and also have the right kind of people at the right place. So everyone's skill set, strength, you need to map it properly. And interesting to hear about what HR means in one of the organizations. I think they would play a huge role into shaping the right kind of people across there who would add the right kind of value to an organization. So get the right people there. And as I said, also having a very agile mindset, changing, adapting to new realities, and particularly move through that despite all or any challenges that you might actually get through in the way, which you might also do. And then what you need to do is obviously monitor and measure your success, your progress. When I say success, you're going to have failures also. So it is both ways. So when it's a progress, it is mix of both success and failures. Some failures, delay your success, and the success obviously pulls it. So the ultimate game is to be successful, but the road to manage that and how you do it across, see all the challenges, you need to figure out ways and means of defining that roadmap. And be comfortable with virtualization. So you may be there across in some places, you may not be there, but it is defining a lot of places to what will make more sense, or what will ensure that you are virtually present in the digital world and in the way the IT helps you across in terms of being the right kind of tool to create this. And for all of these, how do you plan is an application mode of ensuring that you have the best of the review mechanism at your end to ensure the deliverables of the ultimate goals the right way. And since we also mentioned about what is the benefit of actually running through the working remotely, you work from different places, so you have time for your family and friends. You have the option of working from home. Interestingly, working from home is also ensure that you work much more than what you used to work in the office space, but also gives you the flexibility of also calling the stop at certain point in time, so that you are given the mandate of delivering your office work, but also being able to help in the substance of what your family would need. So you need to plan that across and do that. Have a flexible schedule, and that will ensure that everything falls in place. The other aspect which I also see is a lot of the visual meetings which is going to happen, and we've been seeing this across the industry, whether it is your calls, whether it is your crisis management aspects, whether it is launch of new products, whether it is panel discussion like what we are having right now. Whatever you do it across, you need not travel as well, and that's one of the reasons why the travel industry is also facing the heat. But as I said, the new reality also ensures that it is not about being excess somewhere, and you need to travel almost 300 days in a year, but it is about traveling maybe 150 days, but with meaningful aspect of where the travel needs to be done, and then where you can reach out. Because it's if you look at it one way, it's also probably adding a lot of carbon credit in your favor. You don't have to travel, say, not generating as much CO2. So it's a environment conscious thought process also which comes in play, and environment is going to play a very huge role going forward. But of course, that's a separate discussion that we can take it up. So what my final point is, as I mentioned, that we need to adapt, we need to innovate, we need to take risk, but all of that keeping in mind that whatever we are going to do or whatever we want to be, let's also be as human, as empathetic, and as much kind to the people who are being part of our growth, without whose help and whose support and whose being there makes us no good than anyone else. All of us, all the other organizations that are today currently in the panel are much larger than what we are. But even with this very small workforce that we currently have, the whole concept is you need to ensure and take care of your people first. And that would translate obviously into much larger growth as the time comes through. It is no longer going to be an hire and fire policy for people. It is going to get the right set of people and ensure that they thrive in the organization, they add more value, and they ensure that you are the right kind of leader to give them the benefit of how you're trying to shape things up. This is what Mark Zuckerberg has very famously said, is saying, and the VR, and this is, as I said, maybe some other day we'll talk on this topic, maybe we will talk on a separate session. VR is going to be very interesting concept going through the other way. So a lot of things, all you're trying to connect, reach out, have your AI built into the applications, and have a lot more automation even in your processes, whether it involves HR, it involves your production on the manufacturing floor, your automation across driving a car, you name anything across. The VR is going to be a huge technology. So somewhere, because of these current situations, the leadership needs to also look as to what are the new technologies which will ensure that these are newer aspects about things which are going to come in across there and add more value as we shape up ourselves to be the new leaders in a very, very interesting and a very, very new era. So thank you so much, team. And it was a pleasure interfacing with so many esteemed leaders. And I think this has been a great forum. And I thank all of you, and especially the Amity team, to give me this podium to share my thoughts. Thank you so much.
We thank you, Mr. Sinha, for such thought-provoking and inspirational address. Very rightly said by you, right people at the right place is the success mantra. So you talked about technology and actually how technology is changing the overall business landscape. I remember at this point of time a very famous quote: innovation will distinguish between a leader and a follower. And it stands so true in the present times. Leaders will have to innovate the ways of working in the new reality. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
We feel privileged by the presence of Ms. Shelley Kalra, Vice President Operational Risk, Daily Pay Inc., New York. Ms. Kalra is an operational risk management professional with over 20 years of financial industry experience and expertise in evaluating and mitigating business risk, 3 lines of defense governance, managing risk oversight functions to ensure sound and sustainable control environment. Presently, Ms. Kalra is a Senior Vice President, Operational Risk at Daily Pay. Daily Pay is a New York-based fintech since 2015, offering early wage access platform and services. In her role, Ms. Kalra is responsible to promote strong risk culture, sound operational policies and practices across the organization. Prior to that, Ms. Kalra worked at American Express as Director Global Operational Risk Management for 10 years, responsible for managing operational risk for travel lifestyle services business at Amex. I would like to invite Ms. Shelley for sharing her valuable insights on the session theme.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pooja, and thank you, my fellow panelists. I am really excited to be here, and I'm not used to hearing such great introduction about myself, so this is making me a little bit embarrassed, but I'm very excited to be here. And let me pull my presentation.
Yeah, we
so
can see that. Yeah, it is visible.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
awesome. So the theme of my presentation is adaptive leadership, and as I'm hearing other speakers speak, I feel like this has been a common underlying theme across all our presentation. And I can share with the audience that was not planned, but it goes to show how in being a leader, being flexible and adaptive is important, and how much of it's an important trait for any leader to have. I want to start with sharing as to what is adaptive leadership. It is a leadership model that was actually introduced by Harvard professors by the name of Ronald Heifetz and Mary Linsky. They conducted a lot of research on this topic and concluded that businesses are constantly changing and they must be navigated accordingly. The model helps individuals, organizations, or even communities who are dealing with complex changes in uncertain times when there are no clear answers and there are no experts that you can rely on. Adaptive leaders, hence, they engage and they mobilize people with the problem to tackle such complex situations. And when we talk about uncertain times when there's no clear answers, of course, pandemic, as that has been a common theme in all the presentation, presented us very well the same situation where we didn't have known solutions that we could rely on. We didn't have experts that we could use their knowledge that they have solved these problems. And this challenge was a challenge for our governments across the globe. The challenge was for organizations, all businesses, small businesses, larger corporations, this challenge has been for schools, for college, for universities. And there has not been a pandemic in our recent history that we have all faced, and hence this became an adaptive challenge situation that we all had to adjust to. Now, adaptive leadership embraces change, experimentation, and innovation. It's really a mindset shift from where leaders are seen as people who know all the answers and they can come in as superheroes and save the day, to leaders who actually need to mobilize, motivate, and organize people to solve complex problems. I put a quote here from President Obama that your responses has to be reject cynicism, reject pessimism, and push forward with an infectious and relentless optimism. While this quote was not directly related to adaptive leadership, however, it encompasses all the traits that you're required to be a successful adaptive leader. The two critical first steps to understand adaptive leadership or to start behaving as an adaptive leader is, number one, is to recognize what an adaptive challenge is and how it is different from a technical challenge, which typically has a known solution. And then going into understanding how to diagnose the actual problem in an adaptive challenge. I want to start with how is technical challenge, how is adaptive challenge different from a technical challenge? So technical challenge is a problem that we can readily recognize and we know how to solve. It is easy to identify and diagnose, and there are no arguments on what the actual problem is because there have been known solutions, protocols, and best practices to solve them. Technical challenges need an expert, an SME, a subject matter expert, or a people of authority to solve them. And people are usually receptive of the solutions because these problems are known, the solutions are expected to the people who are dealing with the problem. And don't get me wrong, technical problems are complex. They can be very complex too, but typically a solution does not require the people to go outside their comfort zone, outside their boundaries. And the real work with technical challenges is ensuring that there's an effective execution. Whereas the adaptive challenge is where the problem we do not recognize, we haven't seen before. We cannot put our finger on the problem, and even actually identifying the real issue is part of the challenge itself. Sometimes people don't even agree that there is a problem and they deny it. These problems are not best solved by experts because there are no experts that have seen these problems before. So essentially, that's where adaptive leadership, where leaders use the resources to mobilize the people to help solve the complex problems. And most complex challenges, they're a combination of technical challenges and adaptive challenge. And it's an adaptive leader who needs to now see and understand where the technical challenge starts and finish and where the adaptive challenge begins. The biggest mistake that leaders make is trying to solve an adaptive challenge with a technical solution. And I want to use some examples from my recent experience of what is a technical challenge and an adaptive challenge that I'm dealing with. So a technical challenge could be, I work at a daily pay, and we have our customer service center where our customers are calling and they have inquiries and problems. And let's say a customer, we're dealing with the problem of our customer needs a way to change their phone number or let's say, their contact information. So we need to solve that problem by coming up with a technical solution to say that when a customer calls our customer support center, we should have a procedure and best practice on how to help the customer change their contact information. That's a technical challenge that needs a technical solution. And an example of an adaptive challenge that I'm currently dealing with is since DailyPay is a financial technology company, it's a startup, and it has a very startup-y culture, if you may. And so I'm responsible to manage operational risk, and which includes technology risk. So if we're making changes to our product and releasing that to our production system, are we ensuring that we are following the right processes, the right approval, the right code reviews, the right quality assurance? All of that falls within my remit to ensure that that's happening. And that's an adaptive challenge for me, because the company it's a startup culture, and technology is such a core function of my business. There has been a culture of moving things fast and releasing, making changes to our product and making changes to our production environment on a need and an agile manner. Now, when I step in, I'm looking at it as an adaptive challenge, because the changes that I'm trying to make, the rigor that I'm trying to bring into the company, that is challenging the deep-rooted values that the company has had in our technology organization. So that's where I need to not come up with a technical solution that this is a process, this is a procedure that everybody needs to follow, but rather look at ways how I can look into mobilizing and changing the culture of the company so that it doesn't come as a solution that operational risk or Shelley is providing, but it becomes a solution that's right for the company, and it comes from the organization itself. So with that, I think one of the idea that adaptive leadership offers, and something that I resonate with, is getting on the balcony. And it's a metaphor that I think really makes sense. And you can really see yourself, an ability to view the situation from a mental balcony. And this is an opportunity that an adaptive leader need to give themselves to step out of the chaos, step out of the situation, and look at the situation from a holistic, a comprehensive perspective. Because when we are on the dance floor ourselves, we're part of the problem. We are involved and personally into the problem itself. So it requires an adaptive leader to have the ability to be able to step up, to be able to strategize, to be able to connect the dots by looking at things from a different vantage point, from a different lens. And hence this metaphor, getting onto the balcony, I find myself using that a lot, both mentally as well as even literally. The other terms, as I said, connecting the dots, looking at the bigger picture. One term that I have used quite a bit, especially in the last 6 months as I've moved, changed my jobs and learning a new business, is zooming in and zooming out. And I find myself getting onto the dance floor, zooming in, and then zooming out, getting onto the balcony. These are some of the traits. And again, these are very similar to what you've heard throughout these sessions that an adaptive leadership you'll see demonstrating. Emotional intelligence, again, empathy has been a common theme across all the presentation. So the ability to understand your own emotions, very important, but also the emotions of others. Because we're not solving our problems in a vacuum. It's a whole organization, the community of people that the problem impacts. They need to feel motivated and charged up with the solutions. Build on the past rather than jettison it. So using the previous wisdom, not throwing the previous wisdom out of the window, but also being a leader to understand which are the practices that are okay to let go and are no longer effective. Experimental mindset and development, again, very open to experimentation, where we have heard terms like, fail fast, and the only way to be able to do that is by having an experimental mindset and be open to failing and learning from it and moving on and applying those learnings. And last but not the least, organizational justice and character. You have to be able to walk the talk. You will have to come with the empathy as well as honesty to be able to create that culture where your team members, your stakeholders are able to trust you for what you bring to the table. Some of the other effective intervention, as I've said, getting to the balcony. I think if you have to take one thing from this session, I would say it is the metaphor of getting onto the balcony, which is, really stepping up and looking at the larger picture. But these are some interesting steps that the adaptive leadership offers that you can go through if this adaptive leadership topic interests you. Definitely there's some reference material that I've included in the appendix that is going to give you more details about each of these interventions. That's it from my address, but I did include some of the details in the appendix, like, how do you identify whether it's an adaptive challenge versus a technical challenge, as well as I mentioned, there are some reference material included in the appendix as well. Thank you so much. Hopefully you found the adaptive leadership session helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kaur. Thank you so much, Ms. Kaura, for your enlightening words and excellent presentation. Excellent presentation. And yes, the getting to the balcony view is really a good metaphor used, and we really have learned out of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We now move forward. Excellence is the unlimited ability to improve the quality of what you have to offer. The Amity Excellence Award is an attempt to recognize and acknowledge the achievement of organizations and individuals with respect to leadership, enterprise, creativity, innovation, strategy, and quality culture. Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, with full honor, confers the Amity Excellence Award upon Dr. Paul Brown for his outstanding contribution in the field of clinical and organizational psychology. May I request Dr. Anupma R., Professor, Amity Business School, to kindly present the citation. Dr. Anupma, over to you.
It is my absolute pleasure and honor to read the citation of Professor Paul Brown. We honor Professor Paul Brown with the Amity Excellence Award during the 7th Global Leadership Research Conference for his outstanding contribution in the field of clinical and organizational psychology. Professor Paul Brown is a chairman and managing director of Iron Consulting International PET Limited. He's a practicing clinical and organizational psychologist. He has led the world's first visiting professional appointment in organizational neuroscience at London's Southwest University, following his visiting professorship in individual and organizational psychology at Nottingham Law School. He's now a professor of organizational neuroscience, Monarch Business School, Switzerland, and visiting professor at Henley Business School, UK, and is attached to 3 other UK universities for higher degree supervision. Professor Brown has been practicing for the past 50 years, not only as a clinical and organizational psychologist, but also as an executive coach and supervisor. He has co-authored Neuropsychology for Coaches. He writes an occasional column called Brain Game for the management publication Developing Leaders. He has taught at UK's Royal College of Defence Studies for 25 years and sat on the private banking board of merchant banks. He has a long-standing professional advisory interest in the management of family businesses. He also supports, wherever he can, innovation, creativity, startups, and incubators. It is with utmost respect that Amity School, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, confers the Amity Excellence Award on Professor Paul Brown. Thank you.
On behalf of our Honorable Founder President, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan Sir, Honorable Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan Sir, respected Vice Chancellor, Dr. Balwinder Shukla Ma'am, and our esteemed Dean, FMS and Director, Amity Business School, Dr. Sanjeev Bansal Sir, we present the prestigious Amity Excellence Award to Dr. Paul Brown.
Dr. Paul Brown, congratulations. It's amazing, 50 years of service. It's, mention worthy. Heartiest congratulations. This is amazing, sir. 50 years, half a century is too much a time, and we are fortunate to have you here, sir.
Well, this is a remarkable, the most unexpected gift that you've made to me. And actually, I'm very moved and even slightly tearful. It's so unexpected. And it's quite recently that I've discovered Amity Business School and the university. And I'm staggered at the range, the depth of what you are doing. And it's a great discovery. So if in the short space of time, you can intrigue me to the extent that you have, what you must do for your students is also remarkable. Thank you for your generosity and kindness, and I shall treasure that award very substantially. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. And we really do not want, but we will have to come towards the end of this highly engrossing learning journey. And now is the time for the session wrap-up. During the session, we had great discussions, engrossing deliberations. We all came to know how the business landscape is transforming at an exponential rate. Organizational growth, we all understand, is highly unpredictable. The technology, the competitive environment, geopolitics, if we talk about demographic shifts, they are all continuously changing in the unprecedented times we are all finding ourselves in. And this is what we call the new reality, which is characterized by disruption, by change. And it necessitates the organizations and leaders to not only adapt, but also reinvent themselves. At this point of time, I must remark a proficient sense of gratefulness to each of our distinguished speakers for sharing with us some of the finest leadership practices in the new reality. I'm sure the participants of this meeting are all inspired by the highly thought-provoking, sparkling words. I'll just sum up, what are the key takeaways that we have from each one of our distinguished speakers, for all the students sitting out there, and for our august audience. Ms. Sahai rightly said that new reality is we living in the VUCA world. And yes, this VUCA world will keep changing. She so well explained the role of vision, how scenario planning is being done by the organizations and what are the challenges. She talked about flexibility and the very important role of empathy, which all our speakers have touched upon. Dr. Brown beautifully explained us the role of business, the 8 basic emotions which describe our behavior. He discussed about, how organizations and in fact governments all around the world are running on fear during the COVID times. He gave us this very important input. We human beings are the energy systems. Another key takeaway that we have from his address is how we can become a limbic leader, how we can connect, have the courage, and yes, walk the talk. As we move further, Mr. Shivendra Mohan started the discussion on a very friendly note. He discussed how companies were trying to stay afloat as the status quo was being challenged, questioned every time in the last 2 years. He talked about our tough life, and yes, sir, we have difficult questions and with no straight answers. As an entrepreneur, he discussed how important it is to create a system that is stable, that is totally disruptive at the same time during COVID. He beautifully explained with examples how to handle uncertainty. The main key takeaway that we would say is the 4Ds model that he gave us, that is discover, decide, design, and yes, finally do. Mr. Manas Sinha discussed about new ways of technology and working and how this is widening the difference between what is winning and what is losing today. So you very rightly said that in the new world, organizations need robust digitization, and that would further need transformations. And this is here where leaders need to focus. Data is going to be the new gold for business and leaders, and we need to also provide a privacy, a safety model for consumers. Ms. Shelley Kalra talked about a very interesting perspective, how leaders should recognize and they should take care of not only the technical challenges, but the adaptive challenges. And yes, Ms. Kalra, we will surely, in times to come, we will work on this metaphor. You used view situation from mental balcony. Leadership is never been, so easy. It has never been all the more vital. It's never been harder. To thrive and create long-term success in such an unpredictable environment, leaders need new business models and new capabilities. I will end the session wrap up with a quote out here. Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. And all our distinguished speakers have actually helped us understand this quote better and how to get it done in real times. Over to you, Priya.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now request Ms. Kritika Dasgupta, Head Corporate Resource Center, Amity Business School, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
It is my pleasure to propose the vote of thanks for this session. My sincerest gratitude to our visionary founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan sir, and our very dynamic chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan sir, for giving us this platform, Amity. I thank our Vice Chancellor, ma'am, Dr. Balvinder Shukla, for her inspiring mentorship, and our always supportive Dean FMS and Director ABS, Dr. Sanjeev Bansal, sir, for his continuous support and guidance. Thank you, sir. I thank the awardees, Dr. Paul Brown, the speakers, Ms. Sharmila Sahai, Mr. Manas Sinha, Ms. Shelley Kalra, Mr. Shivendra Mohan, for taking out time from their busy schedule. I thank the delegates and our guests for their enthusiastic participation. I would like to acknowledge the entire GLRC team and supporting members for their day and night effort and commitment to make this conference successful. No event can be executed without the generous financial support of our sponsors. Thank you, all our sponsors. I thank the students and the volunteers for working tirelessly across the tracks and the forums. Thank you, the MCs, for being there throughout, Urvashi and Priyam. Thank you all. We really had an enriching session.
Thank you, everyone present. Sir, with your permission, can we close the session?
Surely. Thank you so very much, everyone, for joining us. It was a great pleasure to have you all here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a blessed evening ahead.